For years now, we have been told that Disney is guiding towards making a profit in quarter four of 2024 with Disney Plus.
September 30th of this year.
Yep. They're not telling us that it's going to be profitable. They're telling us that for a single quarter, that they're going to make a penny more than they spend on it. Okay? Right. It's billions, more than 10 billions. What, $16 billion in the hole? But for a single quarter, they're going to make a penny more than they spend. Okay? Mm-hmm. That already, I did not think was a very impressive guidance. Not a great milestone when Netflix is doing what's doing. Mm-hmm. In the most recent shareholders meeting, the one with the AI where Iger spoke to the voices in his head, the language changed, Valiant. I know you noticed this. The language shifted to that by quarter four of 2024, all of our streaming platforms combined are going to be profitable. Now, here's my question to you, Valiant. What I think they're planning to do is they're going to finish buying Hulu in the next 2 quarters. Mm-hmm. And that's going to cost some real money, right? They've already spent $8 billion, I believe. Let's say they're going to spend $8 more billion.
$8.63 billion. Yeah, let's say they wind up buying it for 15.
Okay, $7 more billion. Okay, so they're going to spend that much money at one of the next 2 quarters, and then because they're integrating Hulu and Disney Plus, here's what I think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to take the profits from Hulu, duct tape that to Disney, and declare a victory. But that's never what any of the shareholders thought this meant. Valiant, if that here's the big question. Okay, that took a long time to get here. But the big question is,
no, I got you.
Are shareholders and will the business community, will the investors, will they hold Disney to the fire on that, or do you think they're all going to be hoodwinked and go along with this whistling down the road?
That's to try to gauge what the reaction is going to be is difficult, but I'll tell you this: Disney
are they going to figure it out? Are they watching Valiant Renegade and go, wait a minute?
I hope so. I mean, look, here's the thing: Hulu has been, and we've had friends that have worked extensively as veterans of the advertising industry for many, many, many years, and they've told us point blank what Hulu was the belle of the ball when it came to advertising for streaming, because that was the one thing that everybody watched and from the get-go was incredibly accustomed to watching advertisement on there. So they had no problem selling ads to Hulu, but a lot of the other streaming stuff, like Disney Plus wasn't really a thing, or ESPN Plus is always difficult. But that was the linchpin. Hulu has never really been fully separated out. I know there's a lot of cost synergies. I think the big savings that they're going to show are going to be in the cost synergies. Billions of dollars worth of synergies for coalescing these two services and having more efficient technology instead of running 2 big old clunky systems. That's number one. Number two, the Walt Disney Company has for years, they've almost interchanged, whether deliberately or not, the phrases Disney Plus and DTC.
Oh, you know that's purposeful, because Disney Plus was not going to do what they all said it would, so they had to make the semantic shift.
That's it. And I'm talking about, I mean, sometimes they'd say we need streaming to get profitable. We need to get DTC, direct to consumer, profitable by September 30th. We need to, now, but people read this as, I don't think anybody looked at least I've never heard. Let me put it this way. I've never really read in financial trades where people talk about Disney streaming and seem to have much of any concern, particularly about Hulu. I think they all kind of tend to know that Hulu, although it's not a massive cash machine, it's far more healthy, at least and so it seems, than Disney Plus. Hulu was around before, right? It was a conglomerate. It was a piece of it was owned by Warner Brothers. A piece of it was owned by Disney.
One of the earliest streaming platforms around.
Right. A piece of it was owned by Fox, and a piece of it, of course, is owned by Comcast. Well, Disney got Fox's piece when they bought Fox. The last piece out there is Comcast, 33% of it, thereabout. So, yeah, you got to look at it from the standpoint of, okay, now we're going to sink $15 billion into buying the last share of Hulu. The key is, do we get another clever Vote Disney investor report like we did for Star Wars and the Avengers, where it shows this kind of funny return on investment calculation that Caroline Reed and Forbes did a great job of just kind of tearing apart? We talked about it in the video several weeks ago, but she really did a great play-by-play with the math, showing people how, like, this really isn't the real definition of ROI, which is what we were talking about in the video. It's like, well, you didn't take into account the billions of dollars you spent to acquire the property. You only took into account what you produced film-wise after that. So is Disney going to, what kind of amortization is Disney going to take with this $15 billion purchase of the last stake of Hulu? Because that's effectively another $15 billion of CapEx on the books to buy the rest of that streaming service. Is Disney ever going to actually pull out the revenues and the operating income, the OI, for Disney Plus versus Hulu? Doubtful. Because I think if they were planning on doing that, we would have seen that in the past year when Bob Iger and the new CFO decided to recast the financial data for the past 12 to 18 months, I think at this point, going back, restructuring how they showed things broken up, right? So now we've got Disney Plus and Hulu as streaming. ESPN Plus has been pulled out of that where it used to be there, which was also another big, costly loss leader for him. That's been moved over under ESPN. So ESPN is now, sports is all on its own thing, including ESPN Plus streaming. So now we're left with just Hulu and just Disney Plus. It seems at this point what they're planning on doing is simply announcing DTC, non-sports, but DTC profitability.
Now,
And
here's a number for you, Valiant. According to businessofapps.com, I don't know how credible they are, but they seem credible.
Mm-hmm.
Credible enough, I'll read it right now in front of nearly 2,000 people. According to them, Hulu generated approximately $1.58 billion, so $1.580 billion per quarter in 2023. $6.3 billion total.
That's gross revenue.
Gross revenue. Now, if that's true, let's say that it's making, gosh, I don't know. Let's just play ball with. Let's say that it's making $300 million in profit per quarter.
Which I don't know if it is that much, but yeah.
Right. I don't know if it's that much, but for the purposes of this game, it'll work, and you'll see why in just a moment, because we can.
I'm going to pull up the Disney financials while you're looking at that. Go ahead.
So here's what I would say. If I'm Bob Iger and if I've switched from Disney Plus to DTC and I've got to prove that DTC makes a profit,
mm-hmm.
then what I've got to do is I've got to cut the expenses of Disney Plus in that quarter, which they've cut it down to just the marrow at this point, right? I mean, there's no Mandalorian season 4 on the way, folks. That's gone.
Nope,
there's no Moana show on the way. That's gone.
Shifted to theaters because that's probably those two things right there. I would bet probably close to $400 million, if not $500 million, once you factor in marketing, that would have been expensed to Disney Plus, to DTC, which is now going to be expensed under theatrical distribution and licensing.
Sure. So you've got to get your expenses on Disney Plus. Because listen, you're not gaining subscribers in North America, which is your highest profit area, right? That's your highest margin. ARPU, that's the best, North America. And you're losing there. So since you can't increase there, what you've got to do is you've got to expend low enough that the profits of Hulu, when combined to Disney Plus, generate some kind of profit off DTC for that quarter, lest you fail to deliver the promise to your shareholders. That's the game plan.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back and find in this recasted number here. See, right now I'm looking at the Q4, Q1 fiscal 24, which would have ended December 30th. This would have been from the earnings call that we had in February. It shows DTC streaming businesses, direct-to-consumer, and ESPN quarter ended. This is in company uses combined DTC streaming businesses operating income loss. Okay, so this is combined operating income. So it's showing a loss of $216 million quarter ended December 30th, 2023 versus December 31st, 2022, where it was over $1 billion. Now, some of that may have been because Disney Plus picked up and they shed some dead weight. Some of that may have been a growth in Hulu. Some of that may also have been, and this is the kicker, and this is what makes it hard to tell. Some of that, to be fair, also could have been the mere fact, and I think I ran these numbers in a video some months ago when they did this recasting. I have to go back and look
This is
at
the
it.
most recent one, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You're going to say what I know you're going to say then.
They pulled ESPN Plus out of there.
Right.
ESPN Plus, I mean, even though it's still broadcasting Division II, FCS, college football, smaller colleges, or a lot of games that just can't make it onto regular ESPN or one of their family of channels, they go there. But there's still expenses that are amortized to ESPN Plus, that are credited to ESPN Plus, because, well, that's where they're broadcasting these contracts, these sports games that they have contracted. So
would the Hollywood strikes have also reduced the expenditure, since Disney Plus shows couldn't have been in production?
That's actually one of the stories that we're going to cover tonight.
Right.
Is some of the shrinkage in Hollywood, but no George Costanza jokes out there.
Well, this is why I'm saying that last quarter, everybody better be careful about looking at the last quarter in terms of expenses, because of those Hollywood strikes. We don't know, what it's going to rebound to, because the problem is that you slingshot off that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you couldn't do anything in production, and now you got to get all this stuff out by a deadline, what happens next quarter once the productions can go into place? Well, you've got to rush everything, and you got to spend more to get these things going, sped up and spun up at a faster pace. So we don't know what the next quarter is going to look like. We just know that by the fourth quarter, come hell or high water, Bob Iger is going to make sure that thing shows a penny of profit. And that's why I think for the rest of the year, you and I are going to be wondering and questioning how shareholders are going to view this if we duct taped Hulu onto Disney Plus and we declare a profit off of that.
Well, and at this point, I think that's what they've kind of been. They've been, well, for lack of better words, they've been groomed to look for, right? Is total DTC. So if you're looking at direct to consumer minus live sports, then I suppose that's what you're going to look for. And people may, if they're clever enough, especially during the Q&A session on an earnings call, that the next one will be in about a month from now, they'll ask that question. They would ask, hey, how much of this is attributable to Hulu versus Disney Plus? Is Disney Plus itself? And they're going to try to say, well, now that we've coalesced the systems, well, we really wouldn't want to separate out.
The same thing now. You can't even figure out where one begins and the other ends anymore.
No.
Gosh darn it! If only we could.
I think that's a big part of it. So I look, Disney Plus, if continuing to do what it has been the last 4 years, I can't see how it would ever be profitable short of massive price hikes, just because the amount of content that has been generated for it, the cost of that content, talking about like a lot of Marvel. What did we have last year? Like 7, 8 Marvel and Star Wars shows. Each one of them had to have been $200 million just to produce.
And doing nothing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not really
think about it this
needle.
way. Think about it this way. This is amazing to me. This statistic, by the way, just came out this past week. Bluey. Now, you tell me if you've got this planned out for a segment and I'll shut up. But Bluey. Turns out that Bluey is 29% of all of the viewership. All of the streaming time on Disney Plus is for a cartoon Australian preschool dog show.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about it this way, folks. This is to get your mind wrapped around that any streaming platform can be dedicated to that. If you were to put, at the top of Disney Plus, it's got these categories, right? So they've got Disney and Pixar and Star Wars and Marvel, and I don't know. The fifth now is Hulu, right? Used to be Nat Geo. Maybe Nat Geo something. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you were to put Bluey as a category, not as a show, Bluey, if we're putting them in terms of viewership, Bluey, not as a show, but as an entire category, would be sitting at the far left, the very first option, because Bluey by itself beats the categories. Every
Everything.
category of Disney is defeated by a cartoon preschool dog that they don't own, they don't like, they bought it for patter, and it goes against everything they think should be good because they censor that little dog for conservative stuff when it pops in because they can't stand that.
Yeah.
Good grief.
Yep. No, there's no close second to Bluey, from what I understand. And look, it's evident.
No.
It's evident every week in the Nielsen ratings, with the exception of when another new movie comes out or something recent drops on Disney Plus, like Wish. Yes, you have a few things out there, like Encanto had a good run. Moana has had a good run. And they're going to be things like that. But I mean, this is the point is this is old property. Like, especially things like Moana. This is old property. They didn't have to produce anything. They just had to slap it on there and promote it. And that was one of the questions from probably 2 years ago now almost, where one of the bankers during one of the Disney earnings calls asked, hey, look, we didn't realize that when Disney Plus, and he was specifically talking about Disney Plus. So we didn't realize when Disney Plus started, or maybe we didn't really think about it, that the amount of capital invested in producing all of this massive amount of new content, billions of dollars, versus just utilizing the existing Disney library, which is clearly on its own seeming to do fine for Disney Plus, versus what they're producing that's not really moving the needle. So I think that's going to continue. So
here's an idea. Mm-hmm. How about somebody ask Emperor Bob this next time?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bob, two-shower Bobby. You want Disney Plus to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Disney Plus growing equals money. Money equals happy shareholders. Happy, joy. Let's do that. Your biggest show seems to be the only show that parents trust that they can leave it on play and let the next episode happen, and they don't have to be there to watch it to make sure it's okay.
That's it.
Could we do that with the other shows? Maybe, dear Emperor Bob. Maybe we could drop the ideology and bring back the families, and we could grow a little bit.
No, but Disney's not woke. Bob said so. We'll get to that clip in a minute.
He doesn't know what it means.
I know. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.